There we go. So welcome to the group Body Talk session on Gemini and its you could say it's its sister Sagittarius. So they're polar opposites on the astrological chart. And I did actually make up a little bit of a presentation. I haven't done this in a while. I just have to just going to pull that up if I can find it. Here we are. And like when I say a small presentation, I mean it's really small. There we go. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, we know what that is. So we're doing the full moon in Gemini, and happy full moon, everyone. So I did want to share a little bit about the Body Talk system because I recognize, you know, it's wonderful. We have so many practitioners and some clients, but I think we are also sometimes people are joining that haven't had a Body Talk session, at least a one-on-one. And so I thought I would just do a little bit of an introduction. And so what I'm sharing on my screen here, so when I'm doing this session, these are some of the tools that I'm using to ask, you know, what is the priority for the group itself. And so the main chart here is our main questionnaire, the protocol chart. And then we have, these are just a few samples of many of the courses that we have the opportunity to take in Body Talk. And the one down on the left side is actually the life cycle summary chart, and that does actually look at the 12 houses and the planetary influences. It's the macro aspects. And then I don't know if you probably can see it, the Mindscape. I just chose to include Mindscape because I refer a lot to Mindscape. It's a life sciences course in Body Talk. It's not specifically like for practitioners. It's really open to many, many different types of people. It was the first course I had ever taken in Body Talk. And for me, well, that was the first step in many, many steps in Body Talk, but it just really changed my perspective so much on what was possible that I just had to learn more. So I just thought I would share those things. And then the next thing I'm going into is, because often I'm finding that when I'm talking about the astrological influences and what we're actually focused on, I'm not showing anything. So I thought that I would share this chart. And so this is the full moon in Gemini chart. When it happened, I believe it was, at least in EST, it was 11:09 a.m. And so, you know, there are so many different aspects to a chart. And it's just, you know, the more I study and learn about astrology, the more I realize that it's just this incredibly large body of study. So I just thought, for our purposes, I would really simplify it. I'm doing that as much for me as for you, although you never know what's going to come up. So this is let's see, this is really the first house. That's 1, 2, 3. And these charts move in the counterclockwise direction. And so I put this arrow here because what we're looking at is right now, this is the full moon in the sign of Gemini, which is the third astrological house, and it's at 16 degrees. And right beside it, cozied up, is Mars. And Mars, in this case, is in retrograde. So that little R there, that symbol is for retrograde. So retrograde means that it's, you know, I mean, in some ways we can look at it as a negative, but oftentimes it's more of an opportunity to pause. But when we're looking at these two planets together, the sun or the moon and Mars being exactly 16 degrees, it's what's known as a conjunction. So that they're really, their energies start to sort of merge in a way. And you know, when you look at the aspects of Mars, Mars is known as kind of the either assertive or aggressive planet. It's definitely the action-oriented warrior archetype. Let's set a plan and get it done and don't get in my way is a very Mars type of energy. But it's an incredibly action oriented, whereas the moon is definitely one of the most yin aspects in terms of these archetypal energies. So the moon is about our emotions, it's our intuition, it's our instincts. So they're not necessarily, you know, the most conducive of partners. However, to me, it's just interesting. It's like, well, how might that serve us, you know? And then here we are. So these two are partnered up, and then they're in the house of Gemini. And so Gemini is also more of a yang, masculine type of energy. And it's more of an outward and definitely an action oriented, right? So when you think about Gemini, to me, I have a very good friend that's a Gemini. I actually have a few friends that are Geminis, but a very good friend. And she really personifies, like, I would say, the best of Gemini, in that she started working at a company a few years ago, and already she's changed jobs within the company like 4 or 5 times. She's just propelled and kept moving, and, you know, is learning a lot. And now she's actually teaching. And just to see that kind of the quick intellect and the movement and the diversity of interest and the ability to take in a lot it's a very high energy, and also very verbal. So Gemini is definitely about verbal. So that's an interesting thing as well when we're looking at Mars being in Gemini and the full moon. So the moon is definitely about our emotions and things sort of coming to light. And then Mars can often be about conflict. So, you know, maybe it's about discussing and having conversations that aren't the most comfortable conversations, but that conversations that may be really, you know, the wonderful thing about conflict is it can, you know, out of conflict comes often resolution. So, you know, just to shift and look at these energies in different ways. And then the next aspect here is this big pink arrow, which is the opposition. So these two at 16 degrees in Gemini are opposite the sun in Sagittarius. So now that we are in the sign of Sagittarius, and the sun is going to stay there for a while. So that, again, is a very yang energy. But, you know, how I always think about Sagittarius is the arrow. And it's just, it reminds me of one of the larger aspects. It's like, it's shooting high and it's very focused. And so it's like, whether the aspirations are, you know, higher education or higher spiritual growth, often they're combined. So it's a very sort of expansive kind of energy, whereas Gemini, they're both about communication and intellect and seeking. But Gemini tends to be more localized, whereas Sagittarius is definitely more big picture, and it can be global travel, or it can be, you know, sort of spiritual expansion and travel in that way. So I just wanted to bring that into a context for some people that aren't necessarily familiar with the astrological charts. So that's my little sideshow. I didn't mean to say that, but anyway, that's my Gemini humor coming out for you. And then I'm also just going to mention, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here, that I am going to do my regular every 2 weeks. The next is the new moon in Capricorn, but I'm actually going to do it at a different time. The other thing about the new moon in Capricorn is that it also falls very closely to our winter solstice in the northern hemisphere and the summer solstice in the southern hemisphere. And I'm actually bringing both of those up because we have people now on this call, if they're not here in person, that are actually in the southern hemisphere in different time zones. So, you know, it's just the beautiful thing about the BodyTalk system is that we are such a global organization that we have this potential for reaching all over the world into different communities. So, so yes, I will be doing that, but it will be at 3 p.m. EST, which is at different times around the world, and I'll probably share that with you. But if you wanted to make a note of that. And I'm actually going to take a peek at my notes because of the day I had. Well, really, I'll say the day I created, and it truly was in Gemini fine form, in that I just was hopping around doing all these different things and these little projects that I wanted to sort of come into completion, and including this one, right? So yeah, so let's we need a wall tree. Our dogs will knock it over, eat it. Yeah, you need a wall tree, exactly, Sheila. That's precisely why my wall tree is up, so that the dog doesn't eat it. She can bark at it, but she's not eating it. So let's take a few deep breaths and just
save a little bit of salmon for them, tiny bit.
And I'm just I'm sorry if I'm muting you. I just need to mute just to make sure that that the sound's good for everyone. Yeah, so if you'd like to take a few deep breaths, you can close your eyes if you'd like, just to kind of tap into you. And as I've mentioned to you in the past, I often will go in prior to the session just to see if there's anything to balance as a group matrix, to just, you know, create an ease and facilitation or whatever it is in the group. And I actually just have to, there's another BodyTalk practitioner, Adriana Barros, who is on the call this evening. Adriana's been on my mind a lot. We've known each other for many years now in the system, and I'm going to just share, speaking of dogs, so I just have to share this with you guys. So I had done, well, my puppy, she just started to show some breathing difficulties, and you know, I took her to the vet, and you know, they did heartworm, etc., and they were like, no, she's fine. So I contacted Adriana, because she has a real passion for animals, to do a session on Dorothy, my dog. And so she did the session very quickly. She managed to fit me in, and honestly, I love this system. So Adriana comes back with Dorothy's session. It was a short but very sweet session, and this breathing, she would go into kind of a panting. It came into, I think it was a cell repair. I won't go to the details, but it was her grief about not playing with other puppies. And that, like, this had been on my mind. I need to have Dorothy playing with more dogs. But one of the challenges that we were having, there was a few. One was her vaccination status in terms of taking her to places, and the other was that she had just started to do this new behavior of jumping and not being too agreeable, so we had to kind of curtail. But I was like, oh, I just really have to get her out with her friends again. And Adriana just totally picked it up in her lungs. And I'll tell you, it was like that day that Dorothy, like, you could just see the total change in her breathing and in her sense of being relaxed. And then all of a sudden we have a friend that's like, oh, can I bring my dog over? And then the doggies kept coming over. You know, so Adriana, yeah, I'm giving a shout out to Adriana on this. And I, you know, it's so important, because you're just so passionate about dogs, Adriana, and I just wanted to share, you know, that specific. And so thank you for the help with my dog, but also to say, you know, this system is just so incredible, and that we can work with all these different types of beings. So thank you, Adriana. And I'm just going to tap in again. I'm just like, you've been totally on my mind. So if anybody has a pet that needs some sessions, Adriana Barros is a wonderful person to go to. So a couple deep breaths, and I'm going to just start to tap in. So I mentioned this before, you know, you're here for whatever reason you're here for. We all have whatever is calling us. And so if you'd like to focus on that, what you perhaps would like to see changed, or shift or unblock or open up into new possibilities, your focus will also help to bring that into this session. Okay. So a broader theme is coming in, and it is the theme of joy, which I don't know that I've ever actually had just the theme of joy come up initially, so I'll take it. And, you know, joy, Sherry Carbon, who I don't think is here right now, one of our instructors, and she talks about joy being the motor of life. And it so is, you know, it's one of the emotions of the heart, joy and sadness, another two sisters in a way. And how when we're feeling joy, that it inspires us. And, you know, we look at that, the energy and the chi that comes out of that emotion. It's truly an energy that is beyond sort of willpower or determination, right? It's an uplifting feeling, and so much more. Like, honestly, joy is just, me, it's very akin to bliss in a sense. So that's the theme that's coming up, and it's like it's surrounding us with that energy. And I'm tying this into both Sagittarian and Gemini energies in their capacity for, you know, wanting to learn, and you know, in that sort of sprightly way. With the Gemini energy is like just fascinated, I have to look at this and I want to learn about that. And you know, with the Sagittarian energy is just being so inspired and wanting to inspire others, and that the joy that comes through that. So this is really coming up as a theme, and I just invite you to breathe that in, and we'll see where we're going to go with this. So I'm still staying within that. It's just, this next formula is going to stay within that energy of joy and the heart energy, and I'm actually going into your heart with this, and the heart complex. And what's coming up is a natural consciousness balancing of the heart in its, you know, its highest expression of harmony and joy and connection and peace, and anchoring that into the individuation process. And paralleled to this is hydration of your heart. And hydration, the consciousness of hydration is joy. And so I'm just going to find out if there's any more details on this. Okay, so this is that's the first part, and then it's like we're already kind of moving forward. It's like I can almost see these. It's like, I don't know, we're moving forward. That's how we have to go in this. It's moving forward. It's moving forward into your solar plexus chakra. And when I go into the solar plexus chakra, I'm going into some of the digestive organs, so the pancreas and the spleen are coming up. And certainly within traditional Chinese medicine, their relationship is very close. And so going into this, there's also correlation with the diaphragm. So it's all, you know, all very interconnected within that area, in the diaphragm and pancreas and spleen. And what's coming up is an active memory. It's really like a pattern. Call it a thread. And it's related to anxiety. And when I say anxiety, it's like it's an unsettled feeling, like an inability to feel settled, and this underlying kind of anxiety, and then how that actually reflects in the fluttering of and the movement of your diaphragm. And so there's a belief that's coming up in association with this as well. So it's coming up, it's about feeling worthy. And again, it's still within this active memory thread. And so what comes up is a time when something quite literally, like, I don't actually mean literally, although it could have been literally, like, so surprising to you that it knocked you in your solar plexus. So whether that was like an emotional knock, or probably most often an emotional knock, but just this like almost bending over from the shock or surprise of a betrayal. And it may not, like a betrayal, not necessarily, it could be in a very sort of the classic sense, but a betrayal in a disbelief that whatever happened was happening. And then how that relates to this unsettled, this anxiety. And there may be more of a cycle of that, but it's like there's one strong memory that seems to be at the basis of this in your power chakra, related to your worth. So how I'm seeing this is like this shock or this betrayal is like what it took away from you. It took your power away. And so this is coming up to be released. I'm not sure, or synthesized. I'm not sure. There's something coming in. It's like a parallel to this. So the parallel is taking me into specifically into the spleen. But then within the spleen, I'm going to an ancestral factor. And so, of course, we're working as a group, so we're all going to have our individual factors here, but it's more about this theme. And I just have to tap into what this is. So there's being left behind. So an ancestor that was left behind. So whether, whatever that is for each of you. Like the parents left, or, there was, and I get a sense that it was a bigger conflict. So, or there was a war, so even left behind with death, but something that was quite profound coming through the spleen energy to be balanced. And so contributing to this unsettled anxiety and self-worth. Yeah, so it totally ties in with that self-worth. And there's a satellite that's coming in as a resource to this of the pancreatic reflex point. Many of you know the pancreatic reflex point, just 4 fingers under your left underarm. It's mirrored on both sides, and it relates to this sense of balance, blood sugar balance, mood balance, left-right balance. The traditional Chinese medicine, one of the names for it is the Great Embrace. So when it's imbalanced, we are supported. We feel supported at a deep level. So this is a resource satellite that is coming in to help to shift and balance this breath cycle, the movement of your diaphragm and the pancreas, spleen, active memory balancing. And so I'm just, if you're not breathing, I'm just going to invite you to take a couple of deep breaths. Okay, so we're linking now as a parcel. So we have these 2 parcels. We're linking now into the root chakra. And the root chakra's relationship with the kidney energy. And so when I link into the root chakra, it's about your legs, and the energy of your legs, what your legs represent. So what do the legs represent? Well, moving forward, standing up for yourself, being able to, earth energy up through the kidney meridian, strength. And so there's this balancing that's coming up specifically to your legs through the root chakra. Okay, so there's some anger coming up to be balanced. Okay, so the anger is it's oriented to masculine. No, it's not just, it's like actually male hierarchy. So patriarchy and control. Okay, so there is this, within this definition of rigidity, emotional rigidity that is ready to be balanced. It's a consciousness, defined by consciousness of emotional rigidity. So that's the first part. This links me in still within your root chakra to your kidney 1 points, which are at the very base of your feet. And running a parama, a sidri on these points. So they both draw the earth energy up, as well as help to, they're a point of release as well. So there's a 2-way street here, and there's some block in that flow. It's actually particularly with the earth energy, the movement up. And so this this prana formula is to address this, and I'm just going to find out if I have any definitions or details or anything that I'm going to share with this. So there's a kidney consciousness balancing coming up, a consciousness of survival, and it's coming up as a pathological consciousness of survival in relation to this. And it's anchoring into your heart. And then this is linking as a whole formula, this root chakra formula up to your crown chakra. And within the crown chakra, balancing all 7 subchakras. So all aspects of the crown chakra being balanced. And that is this first formula. So beginning at the beginning in the heart chakra, in the heart space, in that natural consciousness of the heart surrounded by joy, and tapping this in with deep breaths. So with the next, just really exaggerated inhalation and exhalation, as I'm just focusing in on the whole formula back, into the second aspect, into that solar plexus and the diaphragm and that breath cycle relationship with that whole active memory balancing. And resting your hands anytime. And then if you'd like, you can just do a bit of a tap in to yourself, how you're feeling, if anything has shifted or changed or anything is drawing your attention, and bringing that awareness in for observation and new possibilities. Okay. So we're going into, so I'm actually getting an umbrella of the archetypal energy of Gemini, and which is, its element is air. And again, when you think about that, sort of air is often related to intellect. It's the intellects of the houses. By no means, it doesn't mean that there aren't others, other signs that are intellectual, but it's just air represents that kind of mind level, that intellect. And that's a part of the quality of, when we look at sort of healthy or not so healthy aspects of that, like the busy mind or the jumping all over and not completing things or committing to things, or when we have anxiety within that kind of state, that it just means we're a bit scattered and not necessarily in touch with our emotions. So that's the energy, just overarching energy of that mind level and Gemini that's coming up in this next formula. And then that's taking me into a general environment balancing. And so okay, so what's coming up within the general environment is media. And it's including social media, and then news media, but just the broader category of media. And the emotion of fear, so external fear. And this is linking, it's through your head. And so when we're balancing something externally as a general environment, we're looking, is it, entering through your head, heart, or pelvis. So through the head represents something at that mental level. Maybe there's a mind game happening or something within ourselves about this. Entering through the head, and then actually balancing to your pineal gland. Okay. And so the pineal gland related to, our sleep-wake cycles, so very important, but also to our spirituality. And that is what is coming up here. It's a definition of spirituality. There's something else about this here. It's coming up as a distortion of spirituality. It's oriented to, it's an orientation. It's not a definition. It's an orientation of distorted spirituality. Okay, so something about perceptions about others' spirituality, and the impact of this in relation to media, of social media. There's something here that wants to be balanced. So it's this, sorry, it took me a minute to get that, just because it's new to me. I've never come across something quite like this, this distortion of spirituality. Is there further details on that? Yes, orientations, definition. It's further defined by your 5 subtle senses. Okay, there's no further details, but I'm getting a link from this here. Okay, so I'm going into a group matrix balancing, but it's not our group, it's your group. So you're part of this group, but there's a balancing for you, and it's coming up. It's actually community. Okay, so it relates to a community that you are part of. I don't know the details on this yet. I just have to see what it is here. Yeah, it's a spiritual community. Okay. So it's not like I'm not looking at a specific relationship balancing within this. It's actually coming up as a consciousness of separation within a spiritual community. So it could be this community. I mean, in a way, this is a community, but it's this, when we're talking about that consciousness of separation, this is like our how we look at others and ourselves. It's very Gemini. It's a very I hadn't thought about it until now, right? It's like, you know, in a way, Gemini likes to separate things to understand them. It's about duality, right? It's like it's dualism. In order for me to understand it, I need to talk to you about it. I actually have to hear myself talk about it. I need to see it in you. And so this consciousness of separation within is like seeing it. There's some of that happening, right? And that comparison, and not that it's not about wrong, right, or anything, but it's helping to shift that into a balance for you, so that there is less of a feeling of I don't quite belong, or I'm not this, I'm not, whatever it is, right? However that is manifesting itself for you within your spiritual community. It also has to do, there's also like there was something else coming up about your sense of place, like a belonging kind of thing. And again, with that, it's like it's that consciousness of separation, right? So it's like, do I belong? What's my place in this? Do I have a place in this? Like that, and that, it's like very Gemini. What, the back and forth is very kind of Gemini energy. So, so it's helping to bring more clarity and harmony and shifting those deeper beliefs and experiences that create that sense of separation, those fears that create that sense of separation from your connection to your spiritual community, and anchoring that into your heart. Is there further on that? Yeah, so what also comes up within this again is like a satellite coming in, and the satellite is of the 11th astrological house, which is our house of community, right? It's our it's the altruistic house. It's wanting to feel connected and part of something bigger than ourselves. And so that energy is also coming in support of this shift. The other thing it's coming up with the 11th house that's really interesting is that, when we look at 1 through 12, right? So when we get to the later houses, we're looking at our evolution or our development in a way. And so the 11th house, if we wanted to look at the time of age of that, we're looking at later in life. And we've come sort of more into ourselves. We're not, as worried necessarily. I'm not saying that I'm generalizing, but it's, the older we get, the less, hopefully, we care so much about what other people think about what we're doing. And we're actually then able more to tune into connecting for bigger reasons within our hearts, right? So there's that aspect within this. It's like coming in with this satellite around this balancing. So I feel like we're going to tap this in, but I'm just going to have a sip of my tea. And then there's a further definition on this whole last formula, which is of self-expression. And it's of, it's funny, the word authentic is not, I thought it was going to be that, but it's like it's the purity, the purity of your self-expression. And so purity is that fire, right? That like the lack of inhibitions and the flow of from your heart. That's what it is. It's like circling back from the purity from your heart of your self-expression. Let's tap that in. So if you'd like, you can place one hand over the top of your head to indicate the pineal gland, which was in this spiritual balancing and deep breaths with this. And I'm just tapping in to see if there's anything else. And that is our session for today. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining. And as I had mentioned, the next session will be 2 weeks from today on the 22nd, but it will be at 3 p.m. EST. And so it is the new moon in Capricorn. It's also the solstice. So our winter solstice, and then in the southern hemisphere, the southern solstice or the summer solstice. And yeah, so it's like a time of light. And although I have to say, I did a little bit of looking into Capricorn, this next moon in Capricorn. And if you want to accomplish something, it's a good time. And we actually have, again, these are, I mean, they're influences, and depending on what happens in your own chart, but we have Mercury going into a retrograde, right? So we're not in Mercury retrograde right now. So anyway, it's a good time to, if you can't fully accomplish it, but to set the goal to accomplish it prior to the 29th. So yes, we'll see, because my sun sign is in Capricorn. And so I like that kind of thing. Oh, let's set goals. Let's get everybody into it. So yeah, just to plant that seed. Oh, thanks, Vanessa. Nice to have you as part of the group. So yes, thank you everyone again. And hopefully we'll connect again on the 22nd. Okay.